Same story every spring. You drop 50, 60 bucks on flats of annuals. You plant them with actual excitement. And by August, half of them are crispy, brown, done. Ugh. Sound familiar? Then next April you do it again. Same money, same dirt under your nails, same dead plants by August. Here is the fix nobody tells you about at checkout. There are 15 plants you put in the ground exactly once, and they come back every single year, bigger and better than the year before, without you spending another dollar on them ever again. That is not a sales pitch. That is literally just what a perennial is. Today we are counting down the 15 best ones you need in your yard. And number 1 is going to genuinely surprise you, because it does something no other plant on this entire list can do, and almost nobody grows it on purpose. I am not telling you what it is yet. You have to stay with me. Before we start, what is the one annual you keep buying every single spring, even though it never makes it to September? The one you tell yourself will be different this year. Drop it in the comments right now, because by the end of this video you are going to have a permanent replacement for it that costs you nothing after year 1. I want to see what we are replacing. Let's go. Number 15. Coneflower. Echinacea purpurea. Variety defined. Magnus or Cheyenne spirit. If you have never grown this one, I genuinely feel a little bad for you, because it might be the single most forgiving perennial in existence. Here is the detail most people never mention. It does not just come back from its own root system every year. It self-seeds, meaning it drops seed around itself and produces new plants for free. Plant one, and within a few seasons you have got a dozen without spending another cent. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Blooms from midsummer into fall, which is exactly when everything else in your garden starts looking tired and brown and you start wondering why you bothered. Magnus gives you the classic deep rose purple petal with that spiky copper orange center that looks like something out of a painting. Cheyenne Spirit gives you a full range from orange to red to yellow to white from one seed packet. What the garden center will not put on the tag. Coneflowers are one of the highest value pollinator plants you can grow. Monarchs, swallowtails, bees, and goldfinches that go absolutely crazy for the seed heads once they dry in fall. Leave those seed heads standing through winter instead of cutting them back, and you are feeding wildlife and getting free reseeding at the same time. 2 wins, 0 extra work, full sun to light shade, well-draining soil, drought-tolerant after that first season, 18 to 24 inches apart, no staking needed, deer-resistant. Divide every 3 to 4 years when the center starts looking tired and you have just made yourself several new plants with a shovel. People pay $10, $15 a pot at the nursery for what you are about to get for free. Number 14. Black-Eyed Susan. Rudbeckia fulgida. Variety defined, Goldsturm. Write that variety name down. Goldsturm. Because there is a meaningful difference between the plain species and this specific cultivar, and most people never find out what it is until they have already bought the wrong one. This is the workhorse of the perennial border, and it does not get nearly enough credit for how hard it works. Hardy zones 3 through 9, blooming July through October, spreading through both underground rhizomes and self-seeding. So once again, plant once, multiply for free. Golden yellow petals with that dark chocolate brown center. When it is mass-planted, it is genuinely electric. You know those yards you slow down for while driving past? 9 times out of 10, Black-Eyed Susan is somewhere in that bed. Goldsturm specifically has been shown in university trial data to bloom longer and heavier than the plain species and handles heat and humidity better than almost anything else on this list. That makes it a genuine workhorse for southern gardeners in zones 7 through 9, where most flowering perennials tap out by July. Pair it with the coneflower from number 15, and you have got a pollinator corridor blooming for nearly 5 months straight. That specific combination is one of the most recommended native pairings by the National Wildlife Federation. So this is not just pretty, it is ecologically documented. Full sun, average to dry soil, drought tolerant, divide every 3 to 4 years. Leave the seed heads up for winter birds. Number 13. Yarrow. Achillea millefolium. Varieties to find. Coronation Gold or Paprika. Beginners walk right past this one because it looks too simple on the shelf. Experienced gardeners plant it in every single border they own. Here is why. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Blooms late spring through early fall. Deadhead it consistently and it reblooms multiple times in one season. The flat-topped flower clusters come in white, yellow, pink, red, and salmon. The ferny aromatic foliage is exactly why deer and rabbits leave it alone. The scent genuinely disorients their sense of what is actually edible. Here is the part that makes yarrow genuinely special and that almost nobody talks about. It is allelopathic. That means its roots release compounds into the surrounding soil that actively suppress weed germination nearby. You are planting a built-in weed suppressant. At the same time, it draws in parasitic wasps, lacewings, and hoverflies, all of which prey on aphids and other garden pests, so it is doing pest control, beauty, and pollinator support simultaneously from the same plant. Now here is the counterintuitive part. Yarrow performs worse in rich soil, gets floppy, weak-stemmed. Plant it in your worst dirt, give it full sun, barely water it once established, and it rewards you with months of bloom. 2 to 3 feet tall. Divide every 2 to 3 years to keep it contained. The dried flower heads hold their color for months. Real value if you ever sell at a farmer's market or make wreaths. Number 12. Salvia. Salvia nemorosa. Variety to find, Caradonna. This is the plant that makes a garden look professionally designed without any professional effort. Hardy zones 4 through 8. Tall spikes of deep violet-blue flowers from late spring into summer. Cut it back hard after that first flush, a technique gardeners call the Chelsea chop, and it reblooms again in late summer. 2 full bloom cycles from one plant in one season. Caradonna specifically has near black stems that make the flower spikes look even more dramatic against the foliage. Drought tolerant, deer and rabbit resistant. One of the top plants recommended by several bee conservation organizations because the tubular flower shape is precisely matched to bumblebee anatomy. Full sun. Well-draining soil, 18 to 24 inches tall. Design tip almost nobody uses. Plant salvia in odd numbers, 3s, 5s, 7s. I know that sounds like a small thing. It is not a small thing. That one decision is what makes a border look designed instead of just planted. It costs you nothing except arranging the pots differently before you dig. Number 11. Catmint. Nepeta ex Fossini. Variety to find, Walker's Low. Do not let the name fool you. Walker's Low is not actually low-growing. It mounds 2 to 3 feet and cascades beautifully over edges and walls. Hardy zones 4 through 8. Blooming lavender blue from late spring through midsummer. Cut it back hard after the first bloom, and it flushes back full and lush within 2 to 3 weeks for a second wave in late summer. The silvery aromatic foliage is a genuine deer deterrent. Paired with roses as a border combination, it is one of the most classic pairings in English cottage garden design for exactly that reason. Deer avoid both. Full sun to light shade, average to dry soil, extremely low maintenance, and yes, like actual catnip, it will attract neighborhood cats who may roll around in it with genuine enthusiasm. The bees and butterflies love it every bit as much, so it is a lively, high-traffic plant either way. Consider yourself warned. Number 10. Coreopsis. Coreopsis verticillata. Variety to find, Moonbeam. This is bottled sunshine. Soft, creamy yellow flowers. Not harsh, not neon. Just a warm glow that covers the plant so completely you can barely see the foliage underneath. Hardy zones 3 through 9, blooming from early summer clear through fall. One of the longest bloom windows on this entire list. Moonbeam won Perennial Plant of the Year in 1992. More than 30 years later, it is still one of the best-selling perennials in the country because it simply performs. Full sun, average to dry soil, drought tolerant, 18 to 24 inches. Shear the whole plant back by about a third in midsummer, and it flushes with fresh growth and flowers within weeks. One thing that trips people up, it hates wet feet. Poor drainage kills Coreopsis faster than drought ever will. Amend heavy soil with coarse sand before planting. Get the drainage right, and this plant will live in the same spot for 15 or 20 years. Number 9. Astilbe. Astilbe exarensdiae. Varieties to find, Fennel, Bridal Veil, or Amethyst. Here is where the list flips. Everything so far wants full sun. Astilbe wants the opposite. That dark, north-facing corner you have basically given up on. The spot under a mature tree where nothing else will grow. Astilbe turns that exact spot into something genuinely beautiful. Hardy zones 4 through 9. Feathery plume-shaped flower spikes in white, pink, red, lavender, and coral from late spring through midsummer. Even out of bloom, the deeply cut glossy foliage gives you fern-like texture all season long. The one thing you must know: Astilbe needs consistently moist soil. Unlike almost everything else on this list, if you have got a low spot near a downspout or a pond that stays damp, that is exactly where this plant wants to live. Fennel gives you deep red. Bridal Veil gives you pure white. Amethyst gives you lavender purple. Leave the dried seed heads standing through winter for structural interest, and they look genuinely striking in winter arrangements. Of the first 7 plants on this list, which one solves a problem in your yard you have basically given up on? The spot you stopped trying with? The corner you have been ignoring for 2 seasons? Tell me what that spot looks like, and tell me your zone. Because I read every single comment on this channel, and I will tell you whether the plant you are thinking of is the right answer or whether something coming up on this list is actually the better match. And if you found this video halfway through someone sharing it and you are not subscribed yet, this is the moment. This channel does this every single week. Real variety names, real care details, the information the nursery tag never gives you. Subscribe now so the next one lands directly in your feed. Number 8. Sedum, Hylotelephium spectabile. Variety defined. Autumn joy. The name tells you everything. Tight succulent clumps of blue-green foliage all season. Then by late summer, flat flower clusters open apple green, shift to dusty pink, and deepen into rusty red bronze by fall. Leave the seed heads through winter and they turn coppery brown and hold their structure right through snow. This is a genuinely 4-season plant when almost everything else on this list gives you one good season and background foliage the rest of the year. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Full sun. Poor to average well-draining soil. Extremely drought tolerant because it is a succulent. No staking needed as long as it is in full sun. Floppy stems are a shade problem, not a plant problem. Late-season monarchs migrating south flock to autumn joy in fall. And this is not just something gardeners say to each other. Monarch Watch has tracked this behavior. It is real, and it is documented. Planting late-blooming perennials is one of the few concrete things a home gardener can actually do to support that migration. That is worth something. Number 7. Russian Sage, Perovskia atriplicifolia. Variety defined, little spire or blue spire. Pure drama. Tall silvery stems, finely cut aromatic foliage, hazy lavender blue flower spikes that look like they are floating, mass planted in a border, and it reads like a watercolor. Hardy zones 4 through 9, blooming midsummer through fall. 3 to 5 feet tall depending on variety. Full sun, extremely drought tolerant, deer and rabbit resistant because of those same intense aromatic oils in the foliage. Critical care note, and I need you to hear this specifically. Russian sage is a subshrub, meaning the base turns woody over time. Cut it back hard every single year in late winter or early spring, down to 6 to 12 inches. Skip that step and it gets floppy and leggy and never achieves the upright form that made you want it in the first place. Do the cutback, and by midsummer you have got a full breathtaking specimen. Pair it with coneflower or black-eyed Susan for a blue-purple against gold-orange combination that is one of the most photographed color pairings in garden design. It looks intentional because it is intentional. Now you know why. Number 6. Daylily, Hemerocallis. Varieties defined. Stella d'Oro, Happy Returns, or Pardon Me. Before anything else about this plant, if you have cats that go outside, this is the one to skip or fence off entirely. Every part of the daylily is highly toxic to cats. The flowers, the leaves, even the pollen. Dogs are generally considered safe, but cats are a genuine concern, and I want to say that first before anything else. For everyone else, there are over 80,000 registered cultivars of this plant. 80,000. So if you feel overwhelmed at the nursery, that is completely fair. Here is the shortcut. Look for tetraploid varieties which generally have larger, more saturated flowers with better substance than older types. Stella d'Oro gives you compact repeat blooming yellow. Happy Returns gives you lemon yellow with reliable rebloom. Pardon Me gives you deep cranberry red. Hardy zones 1 through 11 for many cultivars, which is essentially the entire country. Blooms early summer through fall depending on variety. Full sun to partial shade. Adaptable to nearly any soil. Drought tolerant once established. Divide every 3 to 5 years and every division is a free plant. What most content skips entirely is the foliage. Dense, grass-like, and functions as a genuine weed suppressor when mass-planted. Exactly why municipalities and highway departments plant daylilies on slopes and roadsides. Free erosion control that also blooms. Number 5. False indigo, Baptisia australis. Variety defined, purple smoke or lunar eclipse. This is the plant that turns casual gardeners into obsessives. Deep cobalt blue-purple flower spikes, almost lupine-like, rising out of a mound of blue-green foliage in late spring. It looks expensive. It looks like you know exactly what you are doing. Then you find out it basically raises itself. Hardy zones 3 through 9, blooming for 3 to 4 weeks in late spring. The blue-green foliage stays attractive the entire rest of the season, even without a single flower on it. In fall, the seed pods turn charcoal black and rattle when shaken, genuinely striking in dried arrangements. Here is the one thing you must know before you plant it. Baptisia develops an extremely deep taproot almost immediately after planting, and it does not tolerate being moved. Get this wrong. Plant it somewhere temporary, decide you want it elsewhere 2 seasons later, and digging it up will almost certainly kill it. Choose the final spot carefully the first time. Full sun to light shade. Average well-draining soil. Then leave it completely alone. It can take 2 to 3 years to reach full size. Once it does, it will sit in that exact spot, essentially maintenance-free, for decades. That patience is the whole investment. It pays back for the rest of your life. Now we are in the top 4. And this is where the list stops being about plants you have probably already heard of. Number 4. Bearded iris. Iris germanica. Varieties to find. Consult the American Iris Society trial garden results for your zone. If Baptisia looks expensive, bearded iris looks like it belongs in a museum. Enormous ruffled blooms in colors that run from pure white to near black, every shade of purple, orange, copper, and bicolor combination you can imagine happening in between, sometimes on the same flower. Hardy zones 3 through 9. Blooming in late spring for a few spectacular weeks. Here is what almost nobody tells first-time growers. And it is the single most common reason bearded iris fails to thrive. The rhizome, the thick horizontal root you are planting, wants to sit at the soil surface, barely covered, with the top actually exposed to sun and air. Bury it like a normal bulb the way instinct tells you to and it will rot. Plant it too deep and you will have a bed full of healthy leaves and 0 flowers for years while you wonder what you did wrong. Get it right. Planted shallow, top exposed, and that bed blooms reliably for 20 years without you touching it. That one detail is the whole difference. Full sun. Well-draining soil. Drought-tolerant once established. Divide every 3 to 4 years. Every rhizome you break off is a brand new plant. Serious iris growers trade and sell divisions the same way people trade sourdough starters. The community around this plant is one of the most generous in all of gardening. Number 3. Hosta. Varieties to find, some in substance for large, Halcyon for blue, or Francis Williams for variegated. We talked about shade with Astilbe. This is the plant that actually dominates that category. More than 8,000 registered cultivars. Every single one grown almost entirely for foliage rather than flowers. Huge heart-shaped or lance-shaped leaves in blue-green, gold, chartreuse, and every possible variegated combination of cream and green, some varieties reaching 3 feet across, others staying compact enough for a container. Hardy zones 3 through 9, thriving in the exact deep shade that defeats most flowering perennials outright. Here is the detail most beginners never learn. Blue-leaved hosta varieties carry a natural waxy coating on the foliage that slugs actually struggle with. The wax makes the leaf surface harder to grip. So if slugs have wrecked your hostas before, the answer might not be more slug bait. It might just be switching to a blue variety. Halcyon is the one to look for. Part to full shade, consistently moist but well-draining soil. Once established hostas are remarkably drought-tolerant for a plant with such enormous leaves. Divide every 4 to 6 years in early spring. A mature clump can be split into a dozen or more sections, making this one of the most cost-effective plants on this entire list for filling a large shaded bed. Which of these top 4 surprised you most? Not which one you plan to grow. Which one genuinely changed how you think about what is possible in your yard? Drop that in the comments with your zone, because a gardener dealing with your exact conditions is reading this comment section right now, and your answer might be exactly what they needed to hear today. Number 2. Peony. Paeonia lactiflora, varieties to find, Sarah Bernhardt for pink, Festiva maxima for white, or Carl Rosenfield for red. Here is the fact that changes how people think about this plant entirely. A well-sited peony can live and bloom reliably for 50, 60, even over 100 years in the same spot. The American Peony Society has documented plantings still blooming after more than a century with essentially zero replacement or major intervention. You are not buying a flower. You are planting something that could genuinely outlive you and still be blooming for whoever inherits your yard. Hardy zones 3 through 8. Enormous fragrant blooms in white, pink, red, and coral in late spring, often with 100 or more petals packed into a single flower. And here is a myth worth killing right now. You will often see ants crawling on peony buds before they open, and there is an old belief that the ants are required to help the bud open. They are not. The buds secrete a sugary nectar and the ants are there for the free meal, in exchange offering the plant some minor protection from other insects. It is a real biological relationship, just not the one the folklore describes. Full sun, rich, well-draining soil, and one planting rule that determines everything. The eyes, the small reddish buds at the top of the root, need to sit no more than 1 to 2 inches below the soil surface. Plant a peony too deep, and it may survive for years without ever producing a single flower. Once correctly planted, do not disturb it. A properly sited peony becomes a permanent fixture, producing cut flowers that sell for $5 to $10 a single stem at florists. From a plant you paid for exactly once. Number 1. Hellebore. Helleborus X hybridus. Varieties to find. Winter Jewels Series or Wedding Party Series. I told you at the start this one was going to genuinely surprise you. Every single plant on this list needs some version of a growing season. Spring growth, summer bloom, fall color, winter dormancy. Number 1 breaks that entire pattern completely. Hellebore blooms in late winter, not early spring, late winter. In many zones it is putting out nodding cup-shaped flowers in white, pink, deep maroon, and near black while there is still snow on the ground around it. I have personally watched hellebore blooms pushing straight up through a light snowfall while every other plant in the yard was completely dormant. The first time you see that, you genuinely do not believe it is happening. Hardy zones 4 through 9. And unlike literally everything else on this countdown, it wants shade. Specifically the dry shade under deciduous trees that almost nothing else will tolerate, which makes it one of the only genuinely reliable flowering options for that exact impossible spot in most American yards. The foliage is evergreen or nearly evergreen in milder zones, meaning you get structure and green presence in your garden in January when everything else is bare dirt and mulch. Here is the detail that seals it. Hellebore foliage contains compounds that make it genuinely unappealing and mildly toxic to deer and rabbits. So in a yard where browsing animals have destroyed everything else you have tried, this plant sits there completely untouched, blooming through the coldest, darkest part of the year. For decades, without you doing a single thing to protect it. Part to full shade, well-draining soil. Drought-tolerant once established. It self-seeds gently around the base of the parent plant. Slow, manageable multiplication rather than aggressive spread. That is the plant I wanted to end on. Because it does something none of the other 14 can do. It gives you color and life during the exact months when your garden has nothing else going on at all. Here is your 15. Coneflower and Black-Eyed Susan for a 5-month pollinator run. Yarrow, Salvia, and Catmint for the toughest, driest spots in your yard. Coreopsis and Sedum for long bloom windows with almost zero maintenance. Astilbe and Hosta for the shade you have been avoiding. Russian Sage and Daylily for drama and pure toughness. Baptisia, Iris, and Peony for the plants that get better and more valuable with every single year they are in the ground. And Hellebore, closing out the calendar when nothing else will. Here is what I want you to picture. Next February. Snow still on the ground. Everything in your yard bare and brown and dormant. And you walk outside and there is something blooming, right there in the cold. Something you planted last spring that is now doing exactly what it was built to do. Without your help, without your worry, without you spending a single dollar to make it happen. That is what these plants give you. Not just summer color, a garden that works for you in every month of the year. Plant these once. Stop replanting the same annuals every April. Let your garden actually compound the way it is supposed to. Here is what I want from you before you close this video. 2 things. First, Tell me which one of these 15 you are planting this season. Not thinking about, planting. And second, tell me which one genuinely surprised you. The one you did not see coming. Drop both in the comments with your zone, because a gardener dealing with your exact soil, your exact climate, and your exact shady problem corner is reading this comment section right now. And what you write might be exactly the thing that changes what they put in their cart this weekend. If this video gave you 15 plants you can trust, with the real variety names and the real care details that actually make the difference, that is exactly what this channel produces every single week. Honest, specific, no filler. Subscribe so the next one finds you directly. One more thing before you go. Next week on this channel, the 10 most common mistakes gardeners make when planting perennials for the first time. And number 3 is something almost every single person watching this video right now does without realizing it is slowly working against them. That video goes live this week. If you are not subscribed, it will not find you. Hit that button now so it lands directly in your feed the moment it publishes. I will see you next week.